Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater, among other areas of the arts. This is my second viewing of Thieves Highway. I saw it about 10 years ago, really liked it. I've always really liked Jules Dassin, who of course made some incredible film noir classics, if not some of the best film noir movies ever made. The Naked City, Night in the City, Brute Force, Rafiki. He's really an incredibly underrated filmmaker. What's so unique about Thieves Highway is that it's a working class noir. So we have characters who get involved with crime, but not with guns, or not with fists. That's mainly the Lee J. Cobb character and a couple of the guys who work for him, who he's essentially a con man and a thief, a petty thief, and he hires people to do his violence for him, which we see later in the film. But everybody is working class. What's also really unique about this film is that where we see in a lot of film noir movies, the characters coming back from the war are damaged as a result of World War II. But in the case of Nick, he comes back after the war and he's in a great mood. He made some good money working as a mechanic. He has all these gifts for his parents and for his woman that he wants to get married to. He's traveled. He wants to go into business with the father of his girlfriend, and so everything's looking great. And then before you know it, his father tells him that his legs are gone. So his whole world just crashes right in the beginning of the film. It doesn't even build up to it. It's just within minutes, boom, the world is broken, and life for him will now never be the same, particularly after the road he goes down. So it has all of the themes that we see in so many great film noir movies: greed, apathy, not caring for your fellow man, only caring for yourself, a cruel world, a world that will throw you to the pits of hell to benefit themselves, corruption, morals, of course. It's really got all those hallmarks, and it packs with a lot of punches, and it really gets to the heart of the issues, I find. And so Nick finds out what happens to his father, and his first instinct, of course, is I'm gonna get that money back for you. So now what happened was he went to San Francisco. His father was a truck driver, so he was hauling all these tomatoes up there to sell in the markets in San Francisco. And the guy who Lee J. Cobb plays was Mike Figlia was giving him all this booze and wine and alcohol, and he's like, yeah, I'll pay you later. So of course it was a con not to pay him, let him go home drunk, and then hope that he gets into an accident, or likely he's going to get into an accident. So of course he gets into this accident, and as a result he loses both his legs. And now, so some of the quote unquote witnesses said that he did pay his father, and his father says he didn't pay him. And so Nick Garkos, they're Greek immigrants, the family. I don't know if Nick was born in America or not, but the parents are from Greece. And he says, I'm going to get that money back for you. And also he needs to get his father's truck back, because his father sold his truck, but the guy didn't pay and made all these, empty promises. So he says to it, he knows that his father is a pushover, and he is not someone that one can push around. And what's interesting is that when he goes to Ed Kinney, is the man who has his father's truck, and he demands the truck back because the guy hasn't made any payments, or he's like, pay up now or I'm going to take the truck. I thought, because of his temper in the beginning, when he's like, I'm going to get that money that these guys, Mike Figlia owes you, I thought for sure that you see enough film noir movies, you think, okay, like violence is going to be an easy impulse here. But it's a working class noir, so really violence, he may feel furious and want to take a swing at someone. But violence is to me, my impression was a last resort, because Ed Kinney says, "Well, hey, I don't have the money. You're gonna have to beat me up if you want to, And he says, and he doesn't do it. And so again, because I had to remind myself, this is so interesting, is that these are not violent people. And so what does he do? He makes a deal with Ed Kinney instead to go, because now Ed Kinney knows where all these apples are that they can take on a farm, apple farm, and off the trees, take it and haul it up and sell it. And for him, he says this is gonna make a killing. No one knows about this spot. It's gonna be a lot of money. So instead he thinks, okay, well, we'll go to San Francisco and we'll sell it to Mike Filia and squeeze as much money out of him as they could. And Ed Kinney knows about Mike Filia, and he's like, he's I forget the exact line, but it was something along the lines of, he's a criminal, he's a thug, he's gonna try to screw us. But you don't exactly know what Nick is going to do when he gets there. I guess it's really like, okay, I'll try to sell it to him and get the best price, because I had to remind myself, yes, he is not a criminal. He is not going to go there and start swinging or take a gun or take a knife. He is going to try to find a way to get the money from him. Because I thought, well, if you want this money, just go to Mike Filia and demand it. Why do you have to now go into business with this guy Ed Kinney and bring all these apples? But I mean, my impression was, yeah, because I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to go up there, you're going to yell at this guy, and there's nothing else he could do other than get violent. Because you look what happens with Ed Kinney. Ed Kinney couldn't pay him or wouldn't pay him. You don't know for sure. And then he goes, well, you're going to have to kick me in the head or beat me up. And he doesn't do it, right? So again, not violent people. So I figured, okay, he's thinking, well, the best thing is bring some business to this guy and then see what we can do. Now, if Ed Kinney is certain that he can make a fortune, then he thinks, okay, I'll go in with him. So Ed Kinney, like, the deal is that Nick will buy all the fruit because he's got this money that from the war that he earned, and Ed Kinney will do the truck driving. So they get 2 trucks. Ed brings his father's truck, and they get another truck. They get all the fruit, and they go up there. But Ed Kinney himself is, he's a shady character. I mean, you get the impression he's not even that much different than Mike Filia. He's not as bad, clearly, as we see in the film. But he also was supposed to do this with 2 other guys who then show up to take the apples and go and sell it. This was the characters of Slob and Pete, played brilliantly by Joseph Pevney and Jack Oakey. And so they show up and he makes some excuse that the deal's off. He's like, oh yeah, the guy sold everything. We should have went earlier. So they go off thinking that it's over, but they think something's not right because Ed Kinney didn't seem that disappointed. So they follow them thinking that these guys must be up to something. So he's already like what we see with Mike Filia. He's a con man himself. He's a liar. And then we see that with the farmer. Because he owed the farmer $1,200, and because something went wrong with their one of the trucks, he tries to stiff the farmer by giving him $900 so they could take the other $300 to fix the truck. And you see the farmer was actually really brilliantly played. How angry he got, and he starts throwing all the food off the truck. I mean, it was such a fit of rage. And the impression I got was like, you know what, people probably try to stiff this guy all the time. There's these guys like Mike Filia and Ed Kinney going to these farmers, trying to screw them out of money all the time. But because Nick is a man of morals and he's a decent man, he says, no, you made the deal's $1,200, you're going to pay him. He's not going to be a hypocrite and be like men like Mike Filia here screwing people over. Deal was $1,200, pay the $1,200. So another thing with this script is that it's a very traditional structure in terms of we have our introduction of characters off the top. We have our inciting incident, which is the fact that his father has lost his legs. So the obstacle is the challenge that is ahead of getting the money from Mike Filia. And the goal, of course, is to get there, to get all this money. And of course, we end it after that with our resolution. So it has a traditional structure, nothing wrong with that. And again, I thought they did that quite well. Like a lot of traditional scripts, we have our plot, but then we have our subplot. So the subplot here is the fact that Slob and Pete are following these guys. So they get their second to the fruit farm. They take what's left, and then they follow these guys, and they notice that the truck is not in the best shape. So they think, and then they say to one guy, Pete says to Slob, "Oh, we don't have to rush over there because look at this guy's truck. It's probably gonna break down." So as they're following them, Ed Kinney's truck is constantly breaking down, and they're just teasing him. They're saying, "Hey, plenty of room on our truck." But you can understand their feelings, even though they're being cruel. Ed Kinney did screw them over, and so they're trying to get their deal back. But you can see why they would be happy to see Ed Kinney's truck falling apart. Now, of course, another theme with noir is consciousness. Morals. Hopefully, finding some kind of moral center, and the humanity that we see with Ed is that Nick Garkos' truck breaks down. He gets a flat tire, and as he's trying to fix it, the car falls on him. And actually, Ed shows up after him and saves him. And so, Nick is very appreciative. And that was the first glimpse of a better man here. And like we see with a lot of film noirs, it's good people finding themselves in situations where they're forced to make bad choices, or they do make bad choices in their life out of desperation, out of a world who doesn't care for them, now becoming cynical because they feel that everybody's shortchanging everyone, so why not me? And so Ed Kinney is a guy who, my impression, of course, was, he's a little like Mike Filia, and he probably deals with men like that, and so all the time, and so now he is becoming like that. But now this was the first time we see more compassion and humanity out of him as he saves Nick. And so that's the subplot, of course, because then, Nick makes his way there, and he's not a trucker like his father. So, Ed warns him how difficult it is, like how long you're on the road. You got all these, these apples, it's a heavy load. And he nearly falls asleep, and he barely gets there awake. And so, Ed Kinney is trying to get there himself. His car is breaking down. Nick gets there, and so right away he gets to Mike Filia. And of course, by coincidence, people want apples. He doesn't have any apples. Sure enough, here comes Nick Garkos. He's got this truck full of apples. And then we begin very quickly to see what kind of a con man he is. First thing they do is they slash his tires so that his truck is stuck there. So that clearly they were going to have some kind of an idea that the guy's going to have to make a deal right in front of Mike Filia's shop because his truck is right there, or they'll steal it from him, which is what they wind up doing. So, he offers him $1,200 and for all the apples because the guy's stuck there. He also takes a bite of the apple and tells him that these apples are not that good. So, Nick seems to be playing along because he's like, "Oh, well, what's wrong with the apples?" And Mike says they're no good and all this kind of stuff. So I didn't get the impression Nick actually believes him. Like, he knows who he is, and he knows who he's dealing with, and he's just playing along. And so when Mike Filia says, "I'll give you $1,200 for everything," he says, "Oh, that's a good deal. Well, I just got to wait for my partner to get here." But that's not a good deal at all, because they paid $1,200. They would have left already for all this fruit and the trucks and everything. They would have left with nothing. So what exactly his plan was at that point, once Ed Kinney got there, I don't know. I guess he figured he'd have a better chance with two men against Mike Filia to get a much better deal. But there is some comedic humor to it where we see how Mike Filia and the guys he's working for, they don't catch on to his cons. They don't catch on to his lies when he's dealing with, Nick and other people. And so it was funny just to see him, kind of be like, "Oh my God, these guys are idiots," So it did find this organic sense of humor. But you immediately see how these guys are thinking about cons, and they slash his tires so his truck is stuck there. The next thing they do is now we meet another major character played brilliantly by Valentina Cortesse, who plays Rika, who's this what clearly a prostitute, and he pays her to take Nick off the street. So, seduce him, bring him upstairs, and that way we're gonna steal all the fruit. So she goes along with it. She takes him upstairs, but he's a different guy. I mean, he is engaged. He's extremely tired, so just getting off the street, I imagine, that was my impression, was just a relief, as he was standing around waiting for Ed Kinney to get there. And she tries to, seduce him, and he rejects her, and he initially does. And you see how hurt she is. She's not used to men like this. She's used to her seduction getting the job done. And so he also begins to see her as a human being, whereas my impression was her experiences with men have been transactional. They've been people treating her like objects, and they're not seeing the human, and he's seeing her. He sees that she's scared, and she opens up to him. She basically implies that she's very sad, almost imagining drowning as she looks out at the seagulls outside. And so she's my impression was that she's like on the verge of suicide. We don't know her background, but whoever she is, she's had a rough life. And so this romance blooms, and I think she falls for him because of the fact that he sees her as a human being, and he's beginning to become attracted to her, but he's also engaged. So he doesn't, obviously he doesn't want to go that far, but then later on he does begin to kiss her in her apartment. And it was interesting how they got around the production code then, because you couldn't show women with their clothes off, but there was nothing about not showing men with their tops off. So here he is with his shirt off, and she's playing tic-tac-toes on his chest, and they have this passionate kiss. And it's a really, really sensual, really charged scene. Really I love, during this time, how they got around the production code. But sure enough, he comes back, Nick, and she, she starts to like him, so she feels bad that he doesn't know what's actually going on outside, that they're stealing fruit off the truck. So she tells him. He goes out. He finds that the guy's made like $4,000 off all this fruit that he's selling, and he's like, yeah, great, well, you owe me 4,000, or it's almost 4,000, pretty close to 4,000. He's like, well, you owe it to me. And so he's tough. I mean, he doesn't want to my impression again is that he wouldn't turn to violence unless he has to. And Mike Filia, you could almost look at him as the character that Lee J. Cobb played, Johnny Friendly, in On the Waterfront, where that guy is a ruthless gangster and is quick with his fists, but Mike Filia is not tough. I mean, my impression was he'll hire people to do his violence for him. And when Nick starts to demand the money, he gives it to him because it's just the two of them in their office together. And so he has to give him the money, but it doesn't stop him from hiring a couple of thugs to go after Nick to get the money back. So I think this is where Nick made a mistake thinking that something like that wouldn't happen. He's celebrating outside. I would have just got out of there. I'm like, I'm trying to trust the likes of Mike Filia or anyone, but he hung around for too long. And there's other great, again, the performance from Valentina Cortesse is fantastic because she overhears the conversation that Nick has with his fiance, saying he made all this money, let's get married. So she's gonna come over, and then he takes her out, and he's in a great mood. And I feel so bad for this woman. I think, man, you just kissed this woman, and now you're getting engaged. You don't see how that's awkward for her. But it's like, again, not everyone in this film is necessarily a good person. I mean, Nick is probably, and his parents are probably the most moral, the people with the most morals in this film, have a real moral essence to them. But even he has a share of flaws, because I felt bad for her as he was just ignoring the fact that he just kissed her, and now his fiance's on his way. And, again, she is, you can see that even though she's mocking him and she says, she just wants to marry you because now you have money. You see that really beneath that is hurt and pain. And as they embrace outside, they go for a walk. Just the look on her face right before she kisses him, because she says, "Well, let's kiss goodbye," and just this vulnerability, this look of like love for this man who finally saw her as a human being. She just brought so much to it, her behavior and her reactions, without necessarily saying anything that would show how she really felt, because she was trying to cover up the pain of her life and the pain of now losing Nick, who she even says, "Oh, you could have been my boyfriend." But I just thought how much she brought to it, the vulnerability, was stunning. And so this is at this point when, they mug him. She, of course, tries to help him, brings him back to the apartment. And what I also love about, you see this in other noir film noir movies, is that the prostitutes are often the most compassionate people, and often are the most nurturing people to the male leads, especially when the male leads are in deep trouble. They're the people to turn to. And so when she's taking care of him, and so when Paulie shows up, his fiance, she only tries to pretend that she's worried that he got beat up. She is so mad that he got mugged, and now that he has no money. And they suggest something like that at the beginning of the film, because when he shows up with all these gifts, he gives her this doll, Japanese doll, and she's sort of like acting like she likes the gift. But then when he gives her the ring, which is on the doll's hand, you see how she lights up. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like that doll was amazing or something. But but at the same time, they were trying to let the audience know a little more of what she's like. That obviously there's a superficiality to her, and that she's more concerned with money, which we certainly see in that scene. So in a sense, Rika and Paulie are both takes on a femme fatale in a way, but Paulie much more so, in the sense that she's only interested in money from. I mean, again, that's the cliche, right? That's like, I mean, I think there have been many femme fatale variations that went much more complex than that cliche, but it's always there to some extent, and here, for me, it really is Paula, even though Rika has elements of that as well, when she says, "Well, I only like money, just like Paulie." But in her case, I don't think she really meant that. For her, getting money from men was a way to survive, because that's what she had to do. So she's saying one thing, but really what she wants is love. And so I thought that was really wonderfully done. Another moment of consciousness is from Slob and Pete, because they're following Ed Kenny. They're egging him on. They're making fun of him that his truck's busting down. Gets into this car accident. There's this shocking image of him as the car is flipping over. It's on fire, and they cut to him bleeding from the mouth right before he burns to death, basically, before it explodes. And it's a really shocking moment. And so that was a moment of they begin to see, ooh, God, like they really feel bad for this guy. And so that, again, it was up until that point, they just seemed like these snarkling villain types, even though we do empathize with them because Ed just screwed them over. But you see how bad they felt for the fact that Ed Kinney was killed. And so, now here's Nick, who is mugged. He has been beaten up. He's come back. He's found his father without legs. He's meeting the likes of Mike Filia, who are con men, who are greedy, who are out to no good, and this is just soul destroying. And so when he's able to finally get back at Mike Filia, and he takes a hammer and he breaks his hand, he beats him up in the bar, and he breaks down and sobs. And again, that's just the classic. That to me is film noir at its best. A man's soul destroyed from his environment. Not that every film noir is like that with the protagonist, but it's a very common noir theme, certainly for people to become destroyed in one way, shape, or form. The ending I don't care for, which it felt very tacked on, and apparently in the book, it was supposed to end with him just going after Mike, and so it has that burning need for revenge continue right to the last page and never stop, and so it's much more ambiguous. And so for the film, they just really kind of cleaned it up and gave it this happy ending, where first a cop comes in just to lecture Nick about the fact that he took the law into his own hands and he shouldn't have beat up Mike Filia, and I know you're mad at this guy, but you can't be doing this kind of stuff. I just thought, okay, give me a break. And then right after that, he finds Rika and they decide to get married. I just thought, come on. I mean, it just felt so tacked on. Not only that, things with Rika, like even though she saved him in a lot of ways after he got beat up, she also suggested that she has been dealing, she knows a lot about how Mike Filia operates, and there's a moment where Nick looks shocked at what she says when she's like, oh, they'll follow you all the way home. They'll do this, they'll do that. So she is aware of their tactics. And for me, just that reaction Nick has to her knowing about Mike Filia's tactics, it's almost as if he was thinking, were you involved with my father getting drunk in this car, or other men being followed out of town to get Mike Filia's money for him? Well, not to get his money, but to steal people's money that he paid them to steal it, to get it back. And so you see this look of horror on his face as she clearly has been dealing and being hired by Mike Filia. So the fact that he would go back and just be like, hey, let's get married, I just thought it just didn't sit well. Too easy. I mean, I think, I can certainly see that he would empathize with her, that he would be really attracted to her, that she may be someone he can fall in love with. But there's problems here because she's from this world, even though it's not her fault. And so I just thought, why just push this happy ending? It just didn't sit well for me. But other than that, it's such a good movie. I would have much preferred it ending right when he's crying in the bar. I think that would have just been a perfect end right there. So it's so good. I think it's a great film. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. The performances are all wonderful. Of course, Richard Conte has another moment when he finds out that Ed Kinney has died. Just the way he begins to just tear into things on the street, and he just can't. He's just bursting with fury. He's been mugged. Now his partner's dead. Everything has just gone wrong, and so I thought everything he brought to it was really, really good. But everybody, Lee J. Cobb, Jack Oakey, Joseph Pevney, Millard Mitchell, Barbara Lawrence, it's really, really good. Everyone is fantastic. So again, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. And if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will find it on the top left corner to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. It is absolutely free to subscribe. Click the like button as well and leave a comment. Let me know, what do you think of Thieves Highway? Thank you again, everyone, and I will see you in the next episode.